never make it this far. They hated, they never
binary, sir, not transgender. So
okay, my bad. Thanks for clarifying.
Listen, you know, no, just because you're into bearded ladies don't mean you can hate on,
don't
the
give
androgynous.
Jeff any engine fluid to want to fuck something else. Just go on with your talk, Wrath.
No, I would not fuck Max's buddy.
Yes, you would.
Okay.
No.
Yep.
Okay, that was like one of the key things though with that conversation. Like he never mentioned anything about hurting Maximus's that's a drinking word. About his non-binary friend. Hey, Mom. Yeah, my mom just came back from work. Anyways, so
hey, Mom,
from there,
I'm just hanging out with Jeff S. TrueKnowledge, that crazy motherfucker that talks about fucking trannies and shit, and bearded ladies and all that shit.
Hey, Mom, you want to clock in?
Wants to use condoms as fucking currency.
Hey, Mom, come listen to this for an amazing thread.
Come join Jeff.
Oh my god, dude.
Come listen, meet this guy that wants to bang bearded ladies. Come on, Mom, come in.
That loves black midgets too.
Okay. So from that incident, I think Thaddeus actually did not hurt Maximus's friend.
Oh, geez. Sorry about that. That was technical difficulties, folks. I don't know what was going on in that show. Andres, why didn't you tell me that I had the crazy eye going on the other night on Fallout Episode 3 recap?
First off, folks, that was him. He was so drunk.
Whatever. I don't want to hear about it.
You're so deniable. You were so drunk up that you didn't even know what you were saying.
I wasn't even that drunk, sir. You must have been. I think you were drunk. Compare me to the gobbler. I am not the gobbler.
It was a joke.
Anyways, folks, I know it was a joke. Welcome, folks. Here's my scripted intro. I apologize. See, I'm already fucking up. We're very professional over here at the MCU'S Bleeding Edge, as everyone knows. It's Monday, 4/29/24 at 10-ish Eastern, 10-ish in the Eastern of the PM. I am, of course, Jeff S., a.k.a. TrueKnowledge, humbled to be the creator and host of the MCU'S Bleeding Edge. And this is our Monday titled show out of our 3 weekly live stream shows, the MCU'S Bleeding Edge Report, where I essentially am the host. I'm just Pop Culture Guy. Mr. Andre's Pop Culture Guy channel presents himself. Time Lord, sir, is here to be my special guest co-host and back me up as usual. And joining us for the whole show this evening, we've got JC from Cyclops is Waiting for Me podcast. It's very welcome to you, JC, for your first chance of the panel on the Bleeding Edge, baby.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciated you reaching out and excited to talk X-Men. I can do that for hours. That's not an issue. So,
well, I would hope so with that title of your podcast. I would make that assumption.
Yeah, we used to do roughly hour-long episodes, and then when X-Men 97 launched, our average episode is like an hour and 45 minutes now, and it was unintentional. It's just how meaty the episodes are by comparison to the original series and such.
Oh, we know we can't. We're not even able to move on to our pop culture topics and stuff like that and whatnot after some of these reviews because they go so long.
Yeah,
especially with guests. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of good stuff to talk about. But folks, basically, as JC so kindly brought up, we're here to bust off an X-Men 97 episode 6 recap. We've got 4 more episode recaps to go after this one. The show's looking strong. Well, 3 more. I'm sorry. Right? Well, no, 7, 8. No, 4 more. 7, 8, 9, 10. And after that, hopefully, we're going to be able to fit in a little bit of Deadpool and Wolverine trailer talk, and finally, we're going to wrap up with our Captain America 4 CinemaCon footage breakdown deal. So we're going to try to knock that out. We're going to start the show. Do us a solid. Consider liking, following, subscribing, all that good shit. Turn on all of our notifications on our YouTube channel so that you're aware when our content comes out, when we're dropping new reaction videos, when we're live, all that good stuff. All right, now let's kill it. Let's fucking send these fucking live stream numbers to the roof and shit and whatnot. We ain't even trying to play here tonight. Well, maybe Andres is, but I don't know. I'm not trying to play. But we'll have to see. I don't know until Andres got to feel him out a little bit.
Andres is providing context in the chat for who the Imperial Guard are for people, it looks like.
Oh, thank you very much, Andres. I found that information, but thank you very much. I appreciate you doing that. So folks, we can you can't do X-Men animated or X-Men 97 unless you start off with the classic intro music. So here we go. All right, and there you go. Wonderful. What do you think, brother?
I mean,
you like the new intro?
I do. I'll give a little bit of a caveat. My co-host and I are personal friends with Ron Wasserman, who did the original music. And he actually did our podcast music with my co-host. So
no shit, that's awesome.
A little bit biased to Ron. All that said, the Newton brothers have done an amazing job with like even alternate variations of the theme that like the pre-theme in the Marvel Studios intro, like that has been fantastic and like changes every week and stuff like that. And how they're actually scoring the individual episodes has all been great. So
I enjoyed that too.
I do love that they are actually taking the effort and like switching up the intros each week as well. Like, not that anybody was ever doing it, but the fact that there's context in the individual episodes for what is going to happen and the characters to be aware of. And I'm sure we're going to get into it, but like literally in episode 6, you start getting clips from One Man's Worth as one of the Twitter. Bo DeMeo basically said, like, yeah, just in case you guys haven't watched it recently, you should probably watch One Man's Worth before you watch this next episode. So,
well, honestly, I didn't even write down the title for this episode. I already have it right in front of me, but I'll pull it up in just a second.
It's Lifedeath Part 2.
Yep.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, Lifedeath Part 2. All right, perfect. Who voices the on the last episode on this one? Was it Rogue?
I believe on Lifedeath it was Storm who did it. So
okay, was it?
Yeah, because Rogue does episode 7, which is Bright Eyes. So
I just watched episode 7 with her and Captain America. That shit's really dope.
Yep.
But that's for next week's recap. All right, so I guess that, we'll start off with, since this is your first time with us, and not everything. CJ, I think that it's just when we started bringing guests on to actually do these episode reviews with us. Normally it's just me and Andres on the Monday shows, just the two of us together.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's nice to kind of revisit the rest of the series a little bit and whatnot, and kind of, give you a chance to, since we've already had a chance to talk about these episodes individually, together,
right?
Kind of, get your thoughts. And I'll ask you too, Andres, what your thoughts are on the show through episode 6. Take away episode 7 and just pretend that doesn't exist yet, right? And I'll start with you, and then we'll go over to Andres.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is we started our podcast a little over 2 years ago, and we were prepping for the release of X-Men 97. So in the back of our heads, there was always this little fear of like, what happens if they miss the mark here? Like, that was like a legit thing that we were worried about. And then I was up in San Francisco flying to GDC for work stuff, and I watched it on a 7 a.m. flight out of Burbank. And by the time I landed, I was like, this is amazing, because I literally downloaded the first 2 episodes, watched them on a plane. They hit every expectation I had, and then went beyond it with this team. Like, they've just completely nailed the stories. They've nailed the characters. I mean, I couldn't be happier with what we've gotten from this series.
Andres?
Yeah, I kind of agree with our guest here. I mean, I was expecting. I mean, I love the X-Men original show. I started rewatching the retro 2 years back for a project. And,
right.
And then when they were developing the show, I was like, oh, it's very intriguing. For the most part, this is Sinister shirt. Annoying me. Anyway, sorry, Mr. Sinister fan. And when it premiered, I was just blown away with the everything. I mean, we've been saying before, me and Jeff, that the animation is great. They really captured that '90s animation, but so much detail and just everything. It's one of the best anime shows I've seen in a while. Acting wise, it's awesome. The new actors that taking over the OG does such a great job, especially the Cyclops actor. I'm like so impressed with that actor. Like he sounds like the original Cyclops.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that it was not the original guy had the original guy not passed away. Totally.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so like right there made me like, okay, they really care about this show. And the writing has been splendid. I mean, like they understand what X-Men is really about, more than the live action movies, unfortunately. I mean, this is just I like the movies. I love the X-Men Fox movies, the best one. But unfortunately, they're not. They haven't really, comic accurately depict the X-Men and who they are. But this show, I mean, play is pure X-Men, which is great. So, and for this episode, I just rapidly think about this episode 6. I think it still continues the strengths that we've seen so far with the 5 episodes we have.
I would say also.
Go ahead.
The standout episode for me is probably the easy answer because I think it's the same one for everybody. But Remember It got like a visceral reaction from me. Like I'm not an emotional person, and I got emotional watching it. And what actually made it harder is when we do our prep for our shows, I watch it at midnight when it comes out because I'm always worried about everything being spoiled for me. I watch it the following night there's a bar here in Los Angeles called Scum and Villainy, which is a fandom bar. And we watch it with a large group of people, including actors from the series.
That's awesome.
And then I watch it one more time where I'm like literally doing like start and stop and like writing notes down and stuff like that. Watching the Gambit scene in a room of people. And there were people who had made it through that day and did not know what was going to happen. And as soon as you see like the stab happen, one dude in the bar literally just yelled no at the top of his like lungs at the screen. And like, I already know what's coming. So I'm dreading seeing it. And then like hearing those emotions from people, like it's a really unique and great experience with that kind of stuff. So,
well, without question, I've definitely watched some of those reaction videos of people in the bars and whatnot, and everything reacting to certain like events like Game of Thrones type stuff and whatnot and all that. Right? There's that was one where they had hooked up in a bar, and that sounds really cool. I mean, I know that from checking out your content and and talking to you on Instagram, I know you mentioned to me and whatnot and everything that you had some of those affiliations or whatnot. I guess that's probably a privilege of living in that area, right?
Yeah, it's a benefit of Los Angeles is that there's just always stuff going on around pop culture events. Half of the voice cast is based in LA. So every week there's one person who's guaranteed to be doing an appearance there. But this most recent week, it was the voice of Bishop, who we've already interviewed for our show. And then Lenore Zan just literally showed up to hang out. And like literally just like at the bar BSing with Rogue. It's like the coolest thing.
Most definitely. So I'll be honest with you. I think episode 2 was probably my highlight so far. Just to be real, episode 5 was pretty emotional, but episode 2 was like some of the best writing that I've probably seen. Like, like Andre said, like some of the best writing I've seen besides maybe like WandaVision and the Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki, Werewolf by Night. I don't want to sit here and pick it apart, but you get what I'm saying. Like, the kind of a malaise that we've had happen in the MCU, right? Overall, with the quality, right? Especially with the live action Disney Plus series kind of going downhill. This has been a breath of fresh air. And I don't know how much it's considering that this is not really canon MCU phase 5. Right. It's not, I don't really know how much this is going to propel the MCU brand, but it's got to be good. It's got to help, right? You'd imagine.
Yeah. I think at the very least, it gives like the whole, like get excitement around anything X-Men related, which is going to play into Deadpool and stuff like that. And just showing like Disney can do quality Marvel even if some of the stuff has missed lately. I think that's kind of
Oh yeah, that's a good
piece.
point. No, it is too. And and they already greenlit the second and third season. So
Right.
I think that was good for the fans. So we start off episode 6, basically, right, with a space battle between the Shi'ar and the Kree empires.
Yep.
And we get a classic comic book look on Ronan the Accuser. In his actual, like kind of green. I prefer the Guardians of the Galaxy, but in his actual like green, comic book accurate costume, got his hammer and all that shit and whatnot, right? Like all the accusers, and it's basically, it ends up being essentially the Imperial Guard and Lilandra's sister. What the hell is her name?
Deathbird.
Deathbird.
Yeah.
Deathbird that end up, sort of like, going after the Kree, or like, leading the assault against the Kree, through the space battle. And we end up having, the Kree getting their ass beat by the Imperial Guard, who are led by Gladiator, and the team is made up by Earthquake, Valken, Gladiator, as I already mentioned before, Manta, I believe it's Flarefire, and then Smasher and Starbolt. Yeah.
Flash
Okay.
Fire. Yeah.
Yep. Quick note: the voice actor who did Gladiator, same voice actor who has been Banshee and also Mojo.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yep.
they usually do,
Yeah.
they do a lot, just like the DC animated.
Yeah.
Andres, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's actually a thing in cartoons. If everyone doesn't know, like a lot of the actors do double roles. Like Alan Tudyk does multiple voice in the Harley Quinn show. If you don't notice, like he's the Joker, Clayface, and then some other character.
Oh, if you watch just like regular animated shows like Bob's Burgers and stuff like that and whatnot and everything, and like stuff like that, there's voice actors that do multiple characters.
Yeah, it's his name in particular is David Arrigo, and he is essentially like the utility person for X-Men 97 so far. I think.
Well, it makes sense
had like
they would have
7
that.
or 8 roles at this point. Yeah.
It makes sense they would have that. Hey, what's going on there, Mr. Raymond from Booze and Chill, sir? How you doing? So essentially, basically the Shi'ar win this battle against the Kree, right? And we go from there over right off to to basically Charles and Lilandra, and them discussing going out to basically announce their engagement and whatnot, to like, this entire emporium full of all these like, I guess like higher, born Shi'ar, right?
Yep.
And so, based off that, they, if I remember correctly, if I mix the Storm and, Xavier stuff, just let me know, guys. But basically, they go out and Lilandra essentially gives this speech and introduces Charles. And of course, he has the suit that they gave him, right? It's been a year that they mentioned in the episode. It's been a year since he left the X-Men.
He has that awful helmet, though. Like, and I know that the helmet is comic accurate, but that is the worst helmet like I think I've ever seen in comic books, honestly.
Oh, well, either way, he comes out with the helmet on
and immediately takes it off. Yeah.
For his introduction. And when they take it off, he kind of gets booed a little bit, like, sort of heckled. And there's like some guffawing and whatnot in the audience because, essentially he's viewed as like being like, sort of not an outcast, but he's a foreigner. You know what I mean? Right. Like he's not actually, Shi'ar. So, what's going on, Ira? I'm not sure who you are. I apologize. Yeah. But it's good to see you. Either way, so we end up having Deathbird basically call Charles out, right? And basically say that he's like lowborn, and whatnot and everything. And he's like, he's Earth, like he's gonna turn like Earth into the Shi'ar's ghetto planet and all this shit.
Well, it starts out with the character's name, I believe, is Akari, and they're like the chancellor of the Shi'ar.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He's kind of like whispering stuff like into Lilandra's ear, so not everybody is hearing it, but also like you kind of need to chill the fuck out is kind of the vibe he gives.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, so basically, right there, Deathbird basically, essentially calls on or invokes the right of Indasha.
Oh, it's Raffi Khan. I'm sorry.
Oh, is that Rathacon? Okay.
Yeah.
Rathacon, you got a
Sorry.
lot of titles, sir. You got a lot of names. Anyways, well, it's good to see you, Rathacon. So Deathbird, goes ahead and invokes the right of Adasha, and I skipped some of the Forge and Storm, but we'll go back. And to test his loyalty and basically force him to erase all of his memories of Earth, including the X-Men and all that shit and whatnot. Now, I skipped ahead, but we go back to Storm, right, with the owl. We determined and figured out that the owl was the adversary the whole time with Storm, right?
Yep.
Going back from episode 4. So we go back to the adversary and Storm. And just to be clear, on the adversary, I did throw together a little bit of information real quick just to kind of point out some of the, the stuff with the comics, for the adversary. The adversary is male in the comics, but the adversary can use anybody's voice that it wants. So it can be, have a female form. It can present itself in whatever appearance it wants. It is male in the comics. And basically it's an ancient mythical entity described as a god or possibly demonic in nature, whose ultimate goal is the destruction of the present universe to pave way for its recreation. Often referred to as the great trickster, it manipulates through deception and seeks chaos for sheer enjoyment. Originated from a dimension of chaos and preyed upon the Cheyenne Indian people. And the reason that, Forge is essentially knows about, the adversary is through his whole background with the Cheyenne, tribe.
Yep.
Right. He actually was trained before he went to Vietnam, he was being trained to become the shaman of the tribe. Right.
And in the comics, didn't he accidentally summon the adversary? I believe. Like, I haven't read that book.
No,
yet.
he did it purposely.
Okay, that was purposeful in the comics. Yeah.
Yeah, he did it purposely. He did it in war, essentially, right? Like when a bunch of his buddies got taken out or whatever, whatnot in Nam, he called on the adversary and whatnot and everything, and essentially, and worship the adversary or whatever to take out the Viet Cong or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we go back right to like the adversary essentially going after it with Storm, right? And, basically putting Storm in her worst possible positions. She's already in the cave. They put, the adversary puts Storm into like an actual, locked coffin,
yep.
right? And she's basically just, he is basically just sort of like purposely trying to like cause her fear and also stave off her trying to heal Forge because she wants Forge to die because she bit Forge. Remember, they're in the cave to try to get the root or whatever, right?
They're not in the cage yet, but
the cage. Oh, the cave. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead.
They're still in the cabin and they're going through this all the illusion that's happening.
You're right.
Do that. But part of it is in the conclusion of the first Lifedeath, the adversary basically says, "I don't want to give up this meal." So the way I interpret that is they're getting more off of the despair of Storm than whatever they were getting off of Forge. So if they kill Forge and Forge dies, that's just going to lead to more and more despair from Storm for it to continue feeding off of.
That's the way that they seem to be portraying it in the series.
Yep.
But I did skip ahead. So at the cabin is where the adversary actually bites Forge.
Yep.
That's where we see, sort of the mental tussle between, Forge or between Storm and, the adversary. And that's when Forge is able to actually use a spell. And I thought the animation was really good on this. Where he pulled a book out.
It was literally the Doctor Strange stuff. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me finish my monologue. And I'll go right to you and Andres. So basically it literally looked like something from like Doctor Strange or from almost like Shang-Chi, sort of like the magic that Forge is able to use to summon or to try to put away or get rid of the demon. He believes that he's sent it away, that he's vanquished it. And that's when he brings up the medicinal plant in the caves that they can heal his wound, right? That's when we go back to Xavier, and that's when we get the challenge to Xavier by Deathbird, right? Say that the memories had to be removed. So I'll stop there. I'll go to you, Andres, right? And then I'll make my way around over to you, CJ, what are your thoughts? I know I gave you a big swath of episode to work with there, and I jumped around a little bit. But Andres, what are your thoughts on the opening of the episode? What are your thoughts on the adversary? What are your thoughts on on the dynamic with the Shi'ar, with Xavier, right? The Imperial Guard scene with the Kree, all that.
Okay. Well, first off, I mean, we have to bring up this is part 2 of episode 4, and I think this was a much better episode. How they handle like juggling multiple storylines. So, like when I first saw this, it was very impressive that they did a Xavier storyline and a Storm storyline together. So it makes episode 4 so weird for them to like do that like traditional cartoon segment that all of us are used to when we were growing up. Like Dexter's Laboratory, or Foster's Imaginary Friends, or Puff Girls. Like they're those traditional episodes like storytelling. That was so weird that they did that, and where compared to part 2, this is like traditional, like just what the more action oriented superhero shows usually do. So it was very fresh that they handled that, and I think this is my favorite episode. It definitely trumps part 1. Man, I love Cosmic Marvel. Like when we were in the space, I was like, oh my god, this is so good. And seeing the Kree again, proper comic Kree, because let's face it, the Marvel, live action Kree is just so bad, and it's just like they cannot just get them right, unfortunately. And it was great to see the comic accurate, Kree. And I was surprised we saw Rowan here. I was like, oh, Rowan. I like the comic more looking Rowan than really the movie version. Unfortunately, it's so just late kind of costume. Like I think it popped on out a bit more, but whatever. It's them. But yeah, it was so cool to see that, and then see the Imperial Guard. If you haven't seen the Phoenix saga, because they pump up there the second half of the Dark Phoenix saga. If you haven't seen that in the comics or the original show that they adapted it.
The X-Men fight him on the moon and all that shit.
Yeah, and they slowly introduced those characters. Like I know the Guardian. It was great to see him again because he's in the original show. And man, it's the animation like on them is just spot on. Like it's splendid. Like not rough, but so clean and like so animated in such a great way. And man, Deathbird, very interesting character. The sister of Leandra. We know Leandra from the original show. I don't think this is the first time she's popping up here, because I don't know if she popped up. Okay.
She was.
Yeah.
They never called her out by name in the original show, probably because of standards and practices for a kid's cartoon.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot. Yeah, because Deathbird. Yeah. No, it makes sense because Hellfire Club was never called Hellfire. They were called something else. The Inner
Circle. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't pay attention to that, like same thing with the League of Assassins, they were called the League of Shadows. In Batman and the series. Yeah, and the adversary. Jumping into that character. I really like the adversary. Very interesting character. Like I liked. One thing I always hated that the live action doesn't do is show different stuff that the X-Men has besides mutants and humans. Like I like how they face the cosmic and the mystical stuff, and this episode really shows that you can do these big Marvel things in the X-Men universe because they're no different. Like the fact that we see the Shi'ar Empire have a problem with Alondra getting married to Xavier is a very discriminated thing, and like it's pure X-Men, and I'm very happy that they went with that. And the adversary, it's very like the idea of the X-Men overcoming their fears, particularly Storm with her claustrophobic, fear. We've seen with the comics and the animation stuff was really cool. And the adversary, I think I brought this up in part 1, that that creature reminds me of Shadow King, another adversary from the X-Men. Which is really cool. So yeah, just to wrap up things, I think those storylines were handled really well compared to part 1, and just the animation again, so splendid. I mean, the action is just so amazing. I mean, when the Guardian stepped in to protect Alondra and it just pushed that bar was so funny. It was like really, like very super, Saiyan.
I have footage. I have footage from the episode. I'll play it later on.
Oh, cool, awesome. Great
I've got
scene.
footage.
Yeah, great scene. So I cannot, I highly recommend this episode. It's just still, top tier, and it's great to see Xavier. I don't know the new actor that's voicing Xavier. It was really great to see him in a different place in with Landra, and I really like that we got back to that. And I'm very intrigued where we'll take Xavier. But we'll get to that.
Okay, JC.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I called you CJ earlier, and I feel like such an asshole.
Good. I didn't want to call it out. I appreciate
you should no, next time call me out, please. That you should. I should at least be able to get your name correctly. No, but the floor is all yours. Have at it.
Yeah, I think one thing I do want to point out was the Easter egg of Vulcan being included, because the last time we saw the Imperial Guard, Vulcan was not even created. Like, let's be like clear about the timelines. So they're actually introducing him in 97, which is 8 years before his origin story actually occurred in the comics, I believe. So, because it was, I want to say it was it Deadly Genesis, which was 2005, 2006. And my co-host Rod does not read any comic books. He knows everything from the cartoons and the toys. That's Rod's knowledge base about it. And I sent him a picture of Vulcan as soon as the episode was over. And he's like, who's that? And I was like, that's the third Summers brother. And he goes, so Xavier can go a galaxy away and still can't get away from this fucking family. That was Rod's reaction to it.
See, now, honestly, my X-Men comic book reading cut off before the 2000s. So I wouldn't even know about, I knew from my own research that was Cyclops' other brother. Mm-hmm. Right. And it makes sense with the Starjammers connection and all that and whatnot. Right. I get it. Yeah. But I didn't know. I wouldn't have known it from reading the comics.
So you stopped before House of M to give it like a point in time. Okay. Yeah. Because I literally
at the end of the boom, at the end of the comic book boom, when the bust happened, I stopped reading right then.
So I stopped then, but then when I got out of college, I restarted reading, and the first book I picked up was a trade for Ultimate Spider-Man and the first issue of House of M. So, but yeah, I loved seeing that. And then on the Storm side of stuff, I loved the surprise moment of Forge coming in there and casting the spell, because you don't get a ton of that with him. Even if you are a regular comic book reader, he is so focused on building and technology, and he's doing like techno cyborg stuff, but you never get really any of his heritage in there. So it was not only a surprise just from him like popping in out of nowhere on it, but it was also like, yeah, I haven't read this version of Forge in the thousands of comics that I've read across my life, Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, because both timelines, like from the Days of Future Past timeline and then the present, he's always the inventor, and they never really go from there. Yeah, I do agree. That was the part I liked about that episode. That seemed more of his heritage.
Well, and even in the modern comics, without even getting into what the story of it is, like he is literally just constantly inventing new things, and nothing about his heritage is ever brought up, basically in any way during the entire. The full Krakoan run, basically. So
JC, if I'm not correct, during the time period when Storm loses her powers in the comics, don't they get stuck in like a parallel dimension or something like that for like 2 years together or some shit? And it's just them alone.
I'll say
like
it with the asterisk of
Inception shit.
I believe so, but I've never read it myself, so it's what I've picked up off of like looking at wikis and stuff. Yeah.
This popped up in research today before the show. I read that during one of the comic book lines where it was heavily tied between Forge and Aurora.
Yeah.
That they actually did spend at one point. They got stuck in almost like think of like the Soul Gem, right? Like world or whatever, whatnot. Like they got stuck in like something like that for like 2 years together or whatever.
Right. So they got to build the relationship over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And I want to say the real life timeline between Lifedeath Part 1 and Lifedeath Part 2 was 2 years of real time in the comics as well. It wasn't just, we got out of it in 2 weeks. So
yeah, we really don't know how long Storm's been away from the X-Men. Like, that's the thing. I mean,
I never got the impression it's more than a month and a half to 2 months. I think it's a pretty tight timeline compared to, you know, that comic book timeline was.
Yeah, no. I gotta say, it's very impressive with the time constraint they're doing. They actually do a really good job with their relationship. Like, I am really invested in that.
Yeah,
it's always the problem when adapting these, you know, relationship characters. You know, it's always tough to, you know, to cram so much time. Like especially like I'm a Batman fan. It's always frustrating when they try to adapt the Robins, and it's like you have to consider how long they have to be a Robin. And you know, I think this show is a really good example of how to, you know, like spend time and, you know, and like develop it in a way that's, you know, organic, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just happy that they're a little loose with the length of the episode. Like, obviously, remember, it was closer to 35 minutes of actual show before credits. And instead of us being stuck in like the typical TV 22s, like at least these are going 30, 31 minutes to get the full story to us. So
most definitely. Okay, well, you know, moving on from there, basically, right? You know, to actually stay on track this time and not be all over the place. Where we pick up at, right, is essentially Storm and Forge making their way to the cave, right? Where basically, you know, they see some old remnants and like some old artillery, not like some old like weaponry or like, you know, shit left over from, I guess, like
munitions boxes,
munitions or something like that. Yeah, from back basically, like, you know, during like the you know, the more colonial, I guess you could call them, almost days or whatever, whatnot, right? Of like, you know, the pre-Civil War, like the U.S. or whatever, right? Or whatever, from way back in the day. So, or after Civil War, I apologize. So, you know, he explains, you know, where all that came from and whatnot and everything. And there is a connection kind of with that and sort of what's going on over with, you know, Xavier and what's going on with like the Shi'ar, right? Because as you know, you see it play out in multiple conversations where you see it with Xavier, with Lilandra, and you see it, you know, with him, with, who's the leader of the guard, the Imperial Guard, the Gladiator. This conversation with Gladiator, right? You see him have a conversation with him, right? You know, talking about art and whatnot and everything. And you see Xavier really noticing that all these, like, you know, other planets and these other civilizations that the Shi'ar have sort of assimilated, right, aren't really educating them at all. They're basically just sort of like, you know, colonizing them, right? And sort of subjecting, you know, defying them a little bit and whatnot to some extent. And so basically they go through the whole process of trying to, you know, to strip Charles of his memories. Lilandra has to do it, and he refuses to let go when it gets to the point of the X-Men, right? He can't let go of that part. And right there, Deathbird freaks out, and they have like a big fight and shit and whatnot, right? And you know, and it's actually a pretty dope action scene. They throw down, and Xavier, like, decides to, like, finally use his powers and puts them all in the classroom and shit and whatnot, with himself as the teacher to like straighten everything out and whatnot, right? Before we go, to that part, Storm bumps into the adversary trying to get this, this plant where she finds in the cave to heal, Forge. And they go back and forth. The adversary is trying to, to make her, to scare the shit out of her, basically to get her to give up, quit for good, right? Changing faces, becoming the different X-Men and whatnot and everything, right? Using her voice. And it's the same voice actor that does Storm, that does the adversary in the episode. And that's when Storm finally realizes that it's actually herself and her own fears and whatnot and everything, and her own distrust, I guess you could, if you want to call it, that's not allowed her to gauge her powers and bring her powers back. That what Forge actually did to her worked. So she, reassumes her powers, reawakens them, and goes into full-blown, long-winded Storm, which I'm sure we're going to see in the scene I'm going to play here in a minute. And before she, we go any farther than that, I might as well just go ahead and say what happens. she takes on the adversary, right? And basically, you know, beats the adversary's ass, right? Like with her powers, right? But she goes like Superman almost and shoots like into space almost at one point. It was pretty dope. So I'll stop there. I'll go to you this time, JC, and I'll go to you, Andres. Your thoughts on, you know, everything up until the point where Xavier does his classroom speech to the whole PR council deal.
I love one of the earlier conversations that Lalandra has with Charles of kind of, you know, once this happens, I need you here with me because I need you to be an educator. But what she's describing, to your point, it's colonizing education. I use that with air quotes on it because she doesn't want to actually educate these other societies. She wants to rule over them. But it does remind Charles, like, yeah, his real power is that he is an educator. And yes, he has mutant powers and that's how he does it. But that is the reminder for him. And I mean, the realization of Storm that she actually had been fixed and it was her own like emotions that were holding her back because the adversary was obviously messing with her the entire time. I thought it was a great combination for those characters to have realizations as to how strong they are at the same time, basically.
Andre, sir?
No. That was, yeah, I completely agree. I think it's very impressive seeing the parallel storyline between Xavier and Storm. The fact that the rewatch, it was very intriguing that, yeah, we're seeing them rediscover who they are, especially Storm, which I really like. And yeah, and you know, especially because, you know, Xavier, he's a very powerful character, and I like the throughout the episode he doesn't really forget who he is. You know, he is the teacher. You know, he is Professor X. You know, and I like that. You know, he does hesitate to, you know, forget about the X-Men because that was his you know, his journey as a teacher is trying to teach, you know, equality, but, you know, also how to control, you know, your powers. You know, basically, and I really dug that, and that's why it's very conflicting for him because he loves this woman who has saved him, you know, a year. And you know, they have, you know, like it's almost like the Magneto relationship, but different. It's an inverse of that. So you got this character, Landra, who's a ruler of these people, and she's saying that she wants to have, you know, to educate these species. But as you know, JC has said, you know, during his summary, you know, his thoughts on this episode, you know, she's really wanted to like just basically rule them, you know, as how Shi'ar has done over the, you know, 1,000 years. We're getting these information in this episode, right? And you know, I think Charles kind of knows that a little bit. You know, like this thing I like about it. He doesn't use his powers. He knows by how they talk or like how they're phrasing things. It's like, okay, you're not really in the same level. Like, you know, he has that with Magneto. You know, despite they have the same, you know, philosophy and how mutants should be, they are very different. You know, he knows that Magneto is very much aggressive, like very much he wants, you know, he thinks the mutants are superior, and Xavier is not like that. He thinks that everyone is equal, you know, despite, you know, the discrimination and prejudice that humans have in their mind. And I think it's very interesting to see that with Alien, you know, and you see that with how the Shi'ar Empire treats Xavier, you know, and I like how he handles it in a way that's, you know, not violent. Like I really like that he did, you know, form the class. And by the way, love that they like nail his powers. You know, we don't have, you know, enough actual projections in this show, and I really like how they do it here. It's so creative, which is amazing. The animation with Xavier's powers is just beautiful and just so creative. And in the meantime, you know, I really dug, you know, Storm and her character arc. I mean, like, I love Storm. She's such a great character. I mean, I like the 90s, you know, version of Storm here because, you know, she's so, you know, so like, what is it, theatrical and so like, you know, so dramatic. It's just so fun. I mean, every time I always thought, just a funny side note, I always thought when she always make her when she calls out her storm powers. I always thought that was a way for her to activate them, but I never realized it's just her, being so, Shakespearean. It was, what was it, the '90s show, the '90s Spider-Man. He's like make fun of that. He's like, so
it helps her to pump herself up or whatnot sometimes, so she can like go harder than she. You know what I'm saying?
I know that. It's cool, especially episode 1 when Cyclops say, bring in the forecast, and like when she does it, it's really cool. But it's just I laughed it so hard when she does it, but it's so great. And here it was so powerful that she got her powers that way, and it's incredible.
And she magically grew her hair back too. She managed to grow her hair back like magically,
and switch costumes.
Yeah, to her switch costumes to her original costume from back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was the cool part. As someone who actually read the the first Uncanny Suit issue, I was so surprised that they did that, and it kind of makes sense. We are transitioning the X-Men into like modern times. Like we're in '97, and it kind of makes sense to maybe put her in that costume. And it's actually comic accurate costume. I mean, Jeff, you pointing out how the Goblin Queen costume is somewhat comic accurate, but the fact that they nailed this costume and animation for Storm is really incredible.
It's very adult. The show's very adult. Just
Yeah.
like it was in the '90s. It's very adult.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I really dug.
Even more adult now than I think it ever was before.
Well, I mean, it's literally rated TV-14 because they wanted to be able to get away with stuff that they couldn't from the Saturday morning rules. So
yeah.
Like, I mean, I think in the original, you saw blood once. It was like Magneto got like scraped across his chest and you saw red marks on bandages, but that was it. Like here in that first fight scene that Cyclops has in the first episode, he cracks a dude in the mouth and blood spits out. So
or versus episode 2, Cyclops have like blood coming out of his mouth. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, people have to understand it wasn't like Batman animated series where that show was allowed to use actual guns and you see a lot of blood scrapes in certain art heroes, like especially Batman. And the DCAU in general. It's good because the fact that they killed off Gambit, speaks all. They're going for a darker tone, which is great. And that's the thing I appreciate about the Storm stuff. I like how dark it is. Like I like how dark horror it is. Like I like that because I really dug the horror aspect of the X-Men. Because they are horror level, like body horror sometimes. And if you haven't seen Legion, that show goes really horror in some of this visuals, and this was that the actress.
It shows the versatility of the X-Men.
Yeah, that's the thing I liked about this episode is the versatility of the X-Men, because we don't see that in the live action movies. It's always like the mutants and the human villains. We don't go out that's why it's so annoying with the Dark Phoenix stuff. They keep it grounded, and it's like no, it has to be big, cosmic. Yeah. That's why we like the MCU, for that. So just wrapping up, this section was awesome. It's my favorite part of the episode, and the actors are really nailing it. I like that the actress that plays Storm voices Adversary. She really has a really creepy voice when she's that character, the Adversary. So I really dug it.
Pretty revealing.
Yeah.
When you look at the costume now, it's pretty revealing.
I mean, I'm shocked that costume was allowed back in '75 when it came out. Like that's her original look from Giant Size X-Men #1. And
I know there was some straight savage shit
for the comics code. That was like probably to the edge they were allowed at that point. I feel like.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, speaking of the comics code back then, they were starting to loosen up. I mean, so it was kind of like the movies back in the '80s and '90s. They
fucked me up with the X-Men and the X-Men comics in the '90s fucked me up in the late '80s and shit when they started making it to where Rogue and Jean and Storm all had like double D's, right? And huge butts. They all did in the comics. They were all drawn like that for a while there. Like on the Uncanny side, not so much, but in the self-titled X-Men book, that's how they were drawn, except for Jubilee.
Do you remember there was literally every summer it was like the X-Men swimsuit special? Like that was a thing Marvel released back in the day,
and then
from like 93 or 94, I want to say.
Like Cyclops was hot, but she wasn't like stacked like Jean was and like Storm was and Rogue was, but she was still fine, right? Like she still looked really good. And like Emma Frost was fine too. And now she's looking all like, I've noticed when I've seen her recently in the comments, she looks all double D'd out. But that was some good footage. Now I actually have the trailer. I have the final X-Men 97 trailer. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it either.
So I'm trying to think if there's anything that's gonna like. It'll definitely spoil stuff from episode 7 in there, no doubt. Just so
okay.
Give a warning to anybody for
if
you don't want spoiled whatever the time code is. Just pause for a sec.
That's one of the cool things about being a week behind real time with the show. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't really have to worry about spoilers that much because we're behind a week.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate that. So I'm going to play the trailer really quick. And I think it's 2 minutes long.
You were my first students. My family. I wanted you to be free. Help build a world where mutants could live however they wish, safe and without fear. My X-Men.
We have to be strong. For the team. For every mutant still out there, they need hope.
Let us do what we do. Believe in each other.
Charles Xavier entrusted me with his dream. Everything he built. Everything he fought for. Now belongs to me. My X-Men.
Almost forgot.
Oh, am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
All right.
I can't believe it's like, let's say, black leather.
I mean, it's the best callback ever because it's literally a word for word from the original movie where they're like, what do you expect? Leather
Like
spandex?
Spandex? Oh
And
my God.
the spandex is just so much better than the leather.
Yeah, leather. Yeah, I know. I never mind the leather on Wolverine because it looked cool on him, but the rest it was kind of weird with some of the characters.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It was more of a practical design decision. It was like, well, if we do spandex in 2000, it's going to look like that god awful Captain America movie where he was literally wearing a motorcycle helmet. Like that was the quality they would have had if it was spandex. So I get it, but I just love that shade was thrown back at the movies after the fact. So
yeah, it was also Batman Robin. That was another reason they went to that because Batman Robin was so garish with its visuals, and they were trying to keep it.
I mean, I don't think they were ever going to put nipples on the X-Men suits, so I think we were really safe there.
we would hope not. So going back to wrap up episode 6, right? We go back to Xavier in the classroom, and he basically breaks it down and explains to like all these Shi'ar, what they're really doing to these other planets and these other people. That they're not educating them; they're sort of exploiting them, if anything, right? He puts it in much more poetic words, but that's when he sees them all, become like skeletons. And then he sees like Gambit become like, all super big in front of him and then turn all skeleton and shit and whatnot. And realizes and flips out and realizes like, something's gone down. Like he realizes the impact of all the deaths of Genosha and all that. It hits him, right? You know, and basically tells Lalandra he's got to go back, you know, to Earth and whatnot, everything, right, to his X-Men. And we go from there, we go to, you know, like sort of a, you know, a throw to Mr. Sinister. And it turns out Mr. Sinister apparently is responsible for the attack on Genosha, right?
Right.
Through Trask, I believe. Yep. So there you go. So I'll go to you, JC, and then I'll go to you, Andres. Thoughts on the wrap up and the end of the episode?
So the Storm wrap up part was actually something that I had predicted coming out of Remember It, of it was going to be, she was going to get her powers back, however they were going to handle that. And then there was going to be a TV that she was going to flip on once the curse of the adversary was broke and they could like communicate with the outside world. And knowing it was coming, like it's just a sense of dread, because there's no way they were going to let Storm have the happy ending to the episode. And it hit so hard on that one. I was just like, oh, this should be like one of the best moments of her life, because she's in love with this dude. She has her power back. She's literally back to being a goddess. And then she's going to find out in some capacity, like she doesn't know if all her friends are dead. She doesn't know if some of her friends are dead. Yeah, it was just the perfect way to end it for her story. And then the Xavier stuff reminded me a lot of Star Wars. It very much felt like that Obi-Wan Kenobi thing of like, it felt like a million people crying out at once and then their voices were suddenly silenced. That's what it felt like to me when all of a sudden he's in the astral plane classroom and just sees rows and rows to like the end of his line of sight of skeletons. I was like, oh, he just experienced all those people dying in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
Okay. Andres?
So yeah, this third, you know, final section is really emotional. I mean, for really, you know, for both characters, you know, you got one character finding out a huge tragic that's happened in a very unique way. Like, I mean, you got one for Storm that's very grounded and like very like realistic, and you see her seeing the news and like, oh my god, like, you know, because I agree with JC, you know, like she's so happy now, you know, like she got her powers back. She has, you know, a person she's in love with, and then all of a sudden, you know, like back in reality, that no, it's still the problem with mutants, you know, it's discrimination, death, and like, I mean, this was a huge shock. And then Xavier, you know, I mean, the visuals, him, you know, sensing the depths of the mutants is really impactful. Like the visuals so dark. It reminds me of what Man of Steel did. You know, if you know how in Man of Steel when Kal-El, you know, Clark was in that like dream thing with General Zod, and how General Zod was like explaining how the terraform was going to be, and you know, we see him with the black suit, and he was going down to the scrolls. It was like that, but so much more better. In a very dark and a very sad way for him to discover what's going on in Earth, you know, and I want to say kudos to this actor that voiced Charles, because he's like out of the '90s show, you know, like he sounds like him, and I was kind of shocked he never. What was the funny meme, because he always screams a lot, Xavier, you know, I don't know, but like.
Well, this voice actor is the one who he was on The Walking Dead, was his big claim to fame. He was one of like, yeah, because it's the original voice actor passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Ross Ducamp or something like that,
McQuaid, I think.
Yeah, McQuaid. He's the one that did the Red Skull in the.
He did Red Skull. Yeah. I know. Ross Ducat or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ducan.
I think it's that. Great actor. He nails Xavier's voice so well, just like Red Skull. I mean, it's very impressive. Just like Alan Tudyk, like another actor, like so talented, like bringing these characters to life. I'm very impressed with that. But yeah, and obviously my boy, Mr. Sinister's back. I was like, when I saw tracks running, I was like, who are they gonna reveal behind that, you know, the Yasha attack? And of course it was my boy Mr. Sinister doing his Sinister thing, which I was so happy with. I'm a huge Sinister fan. I'm so happy he's getting the focus he deserved. Hopefully he comes into the live action movies, you know, in every Thanos way, please. You know, don't.
Well, Andres, do you read comics on the regular or?
So like you guys, I'm like, I jump to different runs. It just works for me.
I don't read. I don't read new comics at all. You know that.
Yeah.
No, because I buy like weekly, literally. Well, the reason I ask is because like I've talked about the difference of modern Sinister, who's like kind of this mastermind, but he's very flamboyant and over the top and theatrical. This Sinister in 92 and 97 is actually scary. Like there's something about the way he presents himself that he actually like invokes horror, kind of like to what you were talking about earlier. Like he's the fangs and stuff, and he doesn't go as campy sometimes as the modern Sinister does. And I like this version of Sinister the best, honestly.
Yeah, I have to confess, out of the Marvel read, I haven't read so much of the X-Men, unfortunately. And with Sinister, I know what you're talking about, the Jonathan Hickman run, right? The Hellfun run. I wish I read more Sinister stuff, but it's just
that's okay. Why don't we move? Let's move on, and why don't we go ahead and do ratings? Because I want to talk about Captain America 4. We didn't get to talk about it last week, and I want to talk about it. So let's do our ratings for the episode and our final thoughts, so we can move on and talk about some other shit besides X-Men 97 tonight. I'll start off. I'm going to drop my rating right now as a solid, I'd say probably 8 out of 10. And that's pretty much all I got. I don't have any final thoughts. I'll go to you, JC.
I would agree. I'd say this one is an 8. I think it's a great episode. The only thing I've said that I wish was different is I thought this was going to be like a 60% Storm, 40% Xavier, and it ended up being the other way. I would prefer if there was more Storm in this episode and just give us a taste of Xavier. I felt like they gave us a lot of him. So, but I still think it's a solid 8.
And what do you think, Andres?
Oh yeah, this is tough.
A 9? A 9?
Well, I don't know.
You rate everything else? Like you rate everything?
Oh please, I give 6 or 8 out of 10. No, I'm probably give this an 8.5 out of 10. I'm a little higher with you guys. I agree with you guys. I actually agree with JC. I was kind of surprised it was Xavier said. I didn't when I got into watching this episode last week and prepping for the show. I didn't really like. I was surprised we were going to get to see Xavier again. But as we see with the trailer that we could show you guys, it seems like he's going back to Earth and be a major player, and so it makes kind of sense why they're doing this now. But at the same time, I really love Storm. She's like my top favorite character of the X-Men team, and I really wish we spent some time with her arc. But it's like she's sharing with these other storylines, and I mean, first off, at least Xavier is more awesome than the Jubilee episode. To be fair, despite I love Jubilee, but I gotta say, it's still top quality. It's still one of the best. I will highly recommend. But it's 8.5.
Okay, all right. So Captain America 4. Now, the whole premise of this Captain America 4 discussion we're going to have here is just based off of us breaking down the general little bit of information that we all know about Captain America 4 so far, and then the CinemaCon footage that was released at CinemaCon, right? And broken down, of course, by several media news outlets and whatnot and everything, right? And spit back out. And it basically boils down to that supposedly Feige came out and, first of all, compared the film to Captain America Winter Soldier.
Yep.
Right? Which I thought was poignant. Now, when it comes to the actual footage, basically, it starts off with, of course, Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross as the president, right? And he's at the White House. They're having like a ceremony, right? And Anthony Mackie kind of walks in as Captain America. He's Captain America. Now, Carl Lumley from Falcon Winter Soldier is in there as Isaiah Bradley. He's a part of the show. You've got Joaquin Torres is the new Falcon, right? That's who we know so far. Our definite characters, that we're going to see. But at the ceremony, right? Basically, I guess, essentially, long story short, Thunderbolt Ross, tells Sam Wilson that he wants him to essentially assemble the new Avengers team, right? The next new Avengers team or whatnot, right? Now they go to the actual ceremony, that's in front of the media and all that, and whatnot, and everything, that the actual event or whatever that they're doing. And there's this music that's played in the background, and that triggers some kind of super soldier, attack or whatever, where Carl Lumley's Isaiah Bradley gets programmed and tries to attack the president, right? And there's these other super soldier secret sleeper agents and whatnot, everything that are in the the actual Secret Service and shit like that and whatnot, that also are trying to get after the president and whatnot. So Sam's got to get his shield out and whatnot and everything and defend the president. And it ends with a scene where they're together, and it's Thunderbolt Ross telling Sam Wilson, you're no Steve Rogers. And Sam Wilson's like, well, I already know that, sir, or whatever, or some shit like that. That's what we know so far. And we basically know that the final battle of the film is supposed to be the Red Hulk versus Sam Wilson, Captain America. Yep. They're going to be doing 2 or 3 months of reshoots on this film before it comes out, to redo 3 major scenes, three major scenes from the film that they took out completely, and they're going to totally redo. So they're going to do 2 or 3 months. They're going to pay for 2 or 3 more months of reshoots before this film comes out to make sure that it's straight. So, I'll start with you, JC, and get you going. What do you think? What are your thoughts on Captain America 4? Now, all this footage was well received, apparently. Apparently, everyone at CinemaCon really liked it. That it was very well received. From what everyone that saw it, whatnot, said it all looked really good. What do you think? Are you hyped for Captain America 4? What do you think about the reshoots? What's your general take?
I'll start with the reshoots. I'm less concerned about reshoots when something has been seen and it gets a positive reaction. So, because at least a portion, they got the vibe right. And if you have something that the vibe is right, then you can extend that across other stuff. It's usually when, we've gone in, we've seen something, everybody hated it, and that's the reason for a reshoot. That's when I get worried. Overall, I'm definitely excited for Captain America 4. I want to see what the MCU looks like without Steve Rogers, with a Captain America at the helm. So I'm cautiously optimistic because, like we kind of alluded to, not everything has hit. And I think this team has the benefit of not doing production during lockdown, which we know was a big part of Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it got fucked up because they literally had an entire story about a virus. You had to scramble, you had to get stuff out on time. I think Feige now is probably in that mindset where I'd rather delay something and get it right than force it out and then have everybody pissed at us, like what he's dealt with in some of the previous projects.
Okay. Andre's a pop culture guy, sir.
No, I agree with JC with his statement. Feige needs to take his time. He knows that the major complaint was just so much quantity over quality. And, this is Captain America. This is your top franchise of the Marvel Cinematic Year. It's important for the overall build-up to the Avengers movies, as you've seen with Winter Soldier and Civil War, and even First Avenger, because Tesseract became a major thing in the First Avengers movie. So, you need to get this first movie right, and you got Sam Wilson here, which everyone loves, and they want him to exceed as Captain America, so there's a lot of writing for this first movie, because look, we got a fourth Thor movie that didn't do well. And so, I'm fine.
Good point.
It's fine to have multiple, I don't mind about going past a trilogy. But if you're going to do that, you need to have a good script and a good direction where you want to go for your next trilogy, fourth, whatever. So
yeah.
So and JC, you brought up the reshoots. Yeah, the fact this new footage is, I think, is the reshoot. The fact that it got good positive, that means it's in a good shape, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think talking about like the fourth Thor movie, I think the biggest problem is there was no vision as to if they're going to do a second Thor trilogy. What does that trilogy look like, or what's it going to lead to? It kind of was just let's let Taika Waititi do whatever he wants to do, and it didn't really have like an end goal other than like let's have goats scream 17 times in a movie.
And there was nobody there on set. There was no showrunner, or there was no like anybody there, nobody executive producer to keep him in check.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So they just let him do whatever. And unfortunately, he shit out, after Ragnarok, which was fucking like a pearl. Yep. He shit out a fucking piece of dog shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ragnarok was great because he had to get from point A to point B. He knew what his point B was. He came up with his own point B for Love and Thunder, and nobody cared about Thor raising an adopted kid. So
no,
yeah, really set him up really well for Thor 5. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. So basically, Anthony Mackie says that this is very much not going to be a Falcon and Winter Soldier season 2 film. Mm-hmm. Like, so if anybody out there who's looking for that or whatnot, that's not the direction that they're going in, and like that's not the feel of the film at all. Like that's not like that's something that they talked about, and like during production was that we don't want to make the Falcon and the Winter Soldier season 2. Yep. So what do you think about that, under his pop culture guy, that they're making an effort to sort of distance themselves a little bit from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, not try to do what we all figured they would do, which was sort of, let's be honest, we all figured that they would sort of bounce off Winter Soldier and tie in some of the Thunderbolts shit, if anything, probably with them, right? And have Bucky still involved, bring in Sharon Carter, right? Bring her back, right? Which I think they will still bring Sharon Carter back. I do.
Yeah.
But there's not going to be any Zemo, right? Like he's not going to be in the film. Bucky's not going to be in the film. So what do you think about that? That they're not going to do a continuation of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
I think we kind of knew that when they announced this fourth movie. It was very uncertain who was going to come back. I mean, it's always like, whatever they were going to pick up storylines from that show was going to be, who was, take, for the given. So I just knew that the fourth Captain America film was much more of like a standalone piece. Hearing from the process from the creators, despite we have a couple here that they're from the show, like Mark Spellman, who's the writer for he was the showrunner, and I just knew it wasn't going to be a second season.
He was the head writer for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, yeah.
Yeah. So that was really it. I just heard recently. So like I knew that Bucky was not going to be here. It was confirmed by Sebastian like a couple weeks ago. So that made a lot of sense. He's going to be in Thunderbolts. That makes sense. I feel like. And Zemo, we'll see. I think he will. Like if the Thunderbolts is successful, I can see him be in the later installments. I think that would be a good stay for that character in a potential sequel. Why not? Sharon Carter. I actually I shouldn't have put a link here, but I heard that she's probably gonna pop up in Armor Wars. That's where we're gonna pick up the whole power broker.
Okay, I can see that making sense.
Yeah, that was something I saw in my research.
Next Monday we need to talk about the fact that they are going to still do Armor Wars and all that and whatnot. That they are keeping all that stuff. That they're still going to do it.
Yeah, which I like because I'm an Iron Man fan. If anyone doesn't know, I hope Rhodey does become an Iron Man. Like that's something Marvel and Steelers need to realize that they can do that because Rhodey did become Iron Man.
I don't think that's what Armor Wars is for.
I feel like he's too old to own the mantle of Iron Man. Like,
yeah,
because he's one of the oldest of any of the original cast members at this point. Like and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but like he looked older.
You fucking ageist.
Secret Invasion, he absolutely looked. He looked like his age. He was not like a cut 50-year-old.
Yeah, that's true. Secret Invasion, yeah, he did look like that. Yeah, as again, I'm an Iron Man fan. If you ever read the Ironmonger saga or in the Dennis O'Neil run, he took over Tony's role, and that makes a lot of sense for you guys saying. But
during the first Secret Wars event, he was Iron Man during the event.
Yes, weird. Yeah, so that's where we're gonna see Sharon again, if that's very true, which I hope, because they have to pay off that storyline. Like that's been an issue with the MCU, with Phase 4 Defiance. They haven't paid off the post-credit scenes and
I just like Sharon Carter personally, so I just want to see her back in something.
Yeah. I like that. I feel sorry for the character.
I mean, she's kind of living it up in Madripoor right now. Let's be real. She's probably okay as a character right now. She's being a little bit of a DL crime boss. So
yeah, and that's the thing. I like what they did with her, Vulcan was a soldier, and it annoyed me that they didn't commit the comic broker. I mean, sort of. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, that's just another one of the things that they flailed. You know what I'm saying? But like, what do you think, JC? What are your thoughts on the fact that they're making this statement? You know, they're actually making this statement that this is not the Falcon Winter Soldier season 2.
I think there was too much of a political story at that time, and it wasn't going to be as strong as the political undertones of the original Winter Soldier movie. That was like my vibe as to like why they don't want to go back to that. I think they want to remind people with this movie that there's going to be big, dumb superhero fights. And I mean that as a positive thing. Like, I think that's why you're going to literally get Captain America punching Red Hulk in the face in the final battle of this movie. And I think there was one line from the footage that was shown where it was President Ross saying, "You're not Steve Rogers." I think what's going to happen is this is going to lead to Ross starts the Thunderbolts as the not Avengers, and that's what's going to cause Sam to start doing the rounds and gathering the people that are still available to him. I think there's going to be some sort of like heads butting between the Thunderbolts and Sam's team of Avengers. I think that's what this all builds to.
And that could cross over into Kingpin, you know what I'm saying? You know, like over on the East Coast, right? They could cross over to Kingpin, right? Very easily, since they want to set him up as sort of like the the more like ground level, right? You know, sort of like Thanos, or there is sort of the term that's being thrown around, you know, which I really like that. I do. I like that you could have that kind of connection. You would imagine Ross would have connections with somebody like Kingpin. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, or you could also do what the comics do sometimes, where you have such big events that are happening concurrently and you split your attention. It's like if you like the street level stuff and it's the Hawkeyes and Echoes and Spider-Mans of the world who are fighting Kingpin and Mafia type shit, but then you need the heavy hitters like your Hulks and your Doctor Stranges to deal with a Red Hulk who's gone berserk and stuff like that. Like you could have two very fun things at the same time too.
They've already laid it out that it's going to be Vale that's going to be running the Thunderbolts. Now, starting it, who knows, right? I'm just saying that it is going to be that they're finally going to service Vale, right, as the actual like head. She's going to be the one that's going to be giving the orders to the Thunderbolts in the Thunderbolts film.
Contessa, yeah.
Yes. So speaking of that, I want to add with the Armor Wars. I heard, she's going to take over the Damage Patrol in Armor Wars, and I can see Ross maybe. Okay,
that makes sense.
Yeah, like I think Ross is going to do is he will initiate, just like how Nick Fury did in the Phase 1, is that I'm going to do my Thunderbolts initiative, and that's how Val is recruiting, is because she's getting inspiration by Ross, and I think that makes a lot of sense because why recruiting?
Well, yeah, because they're going to do Sentry, right? And Sentry's going to come out of the. It's going to come out of the out of the what's it called? Not the Super Soldier program, but the Weapon X program, right?
I had not heard the Weapon X part.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, that's where Sentry comes from. So there's a connection there between Vale and Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt Ross is the Super Soldier guy, right? He's the one that would still be running the program, you know, and. Yeah, Sentry comes from the Weapon X program, the same program as Wolverine and Deadpool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Super Soldier makes sense because of the Incredible Hulk. If you haven't seen it, like, you know, he brought that up, how, you know, the reason he got, Belanxi, you know, the nomination.
We know we're going to get the Sentry, the Thunderbolt, so, like, it makes sense that there would be that connection between Ross, right, and Vale. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and so, no, I like where that's going. So, final thoughts on Captain America 4 before we move on and talk about Blade, baby.
I actually don't have any more about
You got
Captain
anything,
America.
Andres? You talk about Blade, baby?
Look, I love Blade. I love Blade and Wesley Snipes and the trilogy, but come on, just give it up. Is it gonna happen? I mean,
Wesley Snipes is coming back, baby! Woohoo!
Oh my
God,
God.
it's legit. He's coming back. He's gonna be in Secret Wars or some shit. Who knows?
Maybe.
Bring Wesley back.
It's
gonna happen.
Well, hold on. Let me wrap up Captain America 4, then we get to Blade. I feel somewhat confident with the next installment now with the news and the CinemaCon. I wasn't really I wasn't enthusiastic about this project because of what was going on with the MCU. But the fact that Kevin Feige is taking the right directions, and the fact that this footage is probably from the reshoots sounds good. It gives me hope for this project next year. I mean, it's coming out in February, so it's going to be very quick. Yeah, let's go to Blade.
Okay, Blade. It's pretty simple. They're probably going to start shooting Blade again.
They have a script that he likes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to start shooting the movie again. So let's cross our fingers and hope nothing else happens. Because I saw some shit on X just the other day saying that there was a problem again. But apparently it's bullshit. So what do you guys think? I'll go to you first, JC. Blade is going to start shooting again. Hopefully they're going to wrap this bitch up so it can finally come out on time for next year.
I am thrilled that it's happening. The update I saw, and who knows how accurate it is because nobody's seen the script yet, but that it's happening in closer to a modern era as opposed to, I guess the original script was supposed to be like 70s or 80s or something like that. I am so happy that it is the modern era. So that's what I want. I don't want to keep doing these time jumps like what we did in Captain Marvel and stuff like that. Like, just give me that hero today. So that way, when you do inevitably have that person make an appearance in Secret Wars, it doesn't feel forced. It actually feels like, oh, it makes sense. They would be here as all this shit is hitting the fan. So, and I love him as an actor. I think he's fantastic. He crushed it in Luke Cage. And I want to see him as a hero instead of as a villain. So,
yeah.
Andres, what do you think? Blade.
Yeah, Blade. I mean, first off, Mahershala Ali, great actor. I mean, if you haven't seen Luke Cage, the one that's Countermonth, I mean, he was a great villain. He was top 3 after Kingpin and Polka Man, Kilgrave. And when I heard he was going to cast, perfect, pitch perfect. No one else could play Blade, besides Wesley Snipes. And I thought his casting was like spot on. And oh my God, this has been a wild roller coaster for Blade. I agree with you. I actually agree with JC. I don't mind putting our characters in time periods if it works right, like X-Men First Class or the first Wonder Woman movie. But at the same time, I do have to agree, don't put in the time period if you're gonna force to retcon your MCU timeline like Captain Marvel was.
Right.
That was the thing that was so frustrating, because we barely did nothing with her since her first movie. And I don't want to, I like the sequel more, but it barely did what gave her character development. But I'm happy they're putting in modern times, because we're going to get that anyway with Fantastic Four. Speaking of that film, that seems like they're going to be in another Earth, and I feel like it's better to get this, character to be in that time, because it will never make sense because of the post-credit scene from Eternals. Like, okay, why you introduce this character in modern times and then have a movie to it doesn't make sense. Thank goodness they changed that. I'm just asking for it to be a horror film, just like the first film, just like Blade 2. That's I'm asking. That's all. You can tease the Secret Wars towards the end of your post-credit scene in your movie. That's it. Because something I haven't brought up with the X-Men 97 that's been refreshing is that they're focusing on their, these projects over like the shared universe should be your second focus, and your main priority is making good stories with your characters that people like. That's what I want from Blade. So I hope they do it, because right now I'm I'm less excited for Blade. You know, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a fucking. I just wanted to make a basic Blade movie, right? Where there's action and like you have the supernatural shit too. You know what I mean? Whatnot, right? And you get some decent secondary characters to throw in there, right?
Just don't do the Force stuff. Like, don't default to like we need the Dracula story yet. It's like we've already done that. Do not just go back to the well on that shit.
Go simple. Go simple. They say it's going to be Lilith. Lilith is going to be the villain, right? That's fine. Yeah. Do Lilith. Have Lilith be the villain, and then have her stay in the MCU after that, and she can do her thing. You know, like just in the comics, right? And hang out with Mephisto and shit and whatnot. You know?
Exactly. I just don't understand that. Why you take?
It's not complicated. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
It really isn't complicated, seriously. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be that deep. But I'm just glad that they're finally going to be shooting. I really want to believe that, like, at this point now, that everybody they're going to go in there with a mentality where they've got to knock this shit out now, right? Like, all like kind of balls to the wall, like just kind of fucking like. There's no more, there can't be any more bullshit now. They've got they've got the script. They like the story, everybody's locked in, right? They've let some people go, right? So they've made some big changes, like over the course of all these these rewrites. So I'm just, I think Blade could be really good for the MCU. A really good Blade film, a traditional TVMA R-rated Blade film. Well, I think would do well in the box office. What do you think, JC?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. I think Deadpool is going to crush it. It's going to be the first official in the MCU R-rated movie. And if they're not going to hold him back, like, candidly, Blade is easier to do in R, and you're going to have fewer worries from like your legal team on it. It's just going to be blood. They're not going to do half the wild shit with all the cocaine jokes and everything like that, like Deadpool's going to.
Yeah.
So
good point.
You just got to be ready for a little bit of blood and guts. And in a vampire movie, that's not that bad.
Some swearing or whatever and whatnot. Maybe some basic nudity or whatever, whatnot. Whatever. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you get 5 fucks instead of 1, kind of thing. Who cares?
Yeah, Blade's got to say fuck once in a while because he's Blade.
Yeah.
Cool guy. Say words like fuck, folks. To see right, Andres?
Yes, very true. That's why
that's why you say fuck you to me all the time, right?
I mean, that's what Blade told me when he curses at the vampires.
Blade told you to talk to me like that? Okay, I like that.
I mean, in Blade 2, when like the Reapers were coming in, he's like, you know who you're fucking with? And then like, bam, explosion. I'm like, badass. Blade 2, awesome movie, folks.
Blade 3, not so much.
Not so much.
Oh my god, don't even breathe.
Okay, I just got to vent about one thing in Blade 3. I've been involved in the world of pro wrestling for years and stuff like that. He literally just does a vertical suplex, which is one of the most common moves you will see in wrestling matches, and that kills a vampire. That doesn't kill a human. I don't know how that's killing a vampire, and that bothered me so much.
Oh my god, that is so true. What was that? What scene? I try to remember because
there's just it's like a random vampire who's like a club boss or something like that, and he just gives him a vertical suplex, and I don't know why.
Hey, shout out to everybody out there on YouTube real quick, and Rumble and X, Twitter, and all that shit and whatnot, and Facebook Live and all that. We're killing it right now. We've got 57 fucking people watching us, so what's up? I hope you're enjoying the show, or I hope we're entertaining you properly and all that and whatnot, like we usually try to here on Monday evenings. But guys, let's wrap things up a little bit here. On I guess Blade and Deadpool 3. The Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, I'm sure you've already seen, JC.
Yep.
And obviously Andres and I have seen it and everything. We reacted to it. I haven't put the reaction up. I'm sorry I haven't put it up yet, Andres, but I'm going to.
No.
I don't have it on hand, right, like ready to rock and roll to throw up. But to basically, I guess probably all I was just basically going to do, JC, was now that we've all had a chance to soak up the trailer more than once, and we're not just reacting to it and whatnot. I'll start with you. What do you think of what'd you think of the trailer? What are your thoughts on Deadpool 3, Deadpool Wolverine? Same thing to you, Andres. And then we'll plug out of here.
I was honestly surprised. I was not expecting it to be so TVA heavy and like literally having Aelith and stuff like that. I thought it was going to be more X-Men centric. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of it in there, but there is so much TVA stuff that I was like, all right, I literally don't know what to expect now because the trailer caught me completely off guard in a good way. So,
Andre's the pop culture guy, sir. What are your thoughts?
Well, I love well, two things I love about my life: X-Men and Deadpool Wolverine. They're great characters, and the trailer delivered that. I mean, it was so nice to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I mean, I grew up watching the Fox X-Men films, and Hugh is always like Hugh was the first Robert Downey Jr. for Marvel. You know, like he stuck around for 24 years. The fact he's coming back again, and it's just really emotional for me to see him, you know, be back in a comic book actor suit. It's amazing. And yeah, I did agree with JC. Like, it's cool. If you love Loki, it's great to see the TVA be in a big movie, because there was always a question where we're going to see these characters. I mean, or not the characters, the TVA in general, where we're going to see them again. And it's great to see them in the Deadpool, you know, like X-Men movie, which is great. And I'm very curious to see the guy from the Accession, Paradox, you know, and where he fits in, and you know, where is TVA good or bad, you know. But the most part for me, I'm happy to see other X-Men characters like Lady Deathstrike, and Cecil, and you know, the other X-Men characters coming back for a cameo. It's like, oh my god, it's gonna be crazy.
Well, it's supposedly there's going to be a like a rebel side in the Void that's against what's her name? Xavier's twin sister,
Cassandra Nova.
Cassandra Nova, right? And that's going to be where you're going to see Elektra from Daredevil and all that shit and whatnot. And what's her name? The from Logan.
X-23.
X-23. Yeah.
That I'm very excited about. I'm very curious about the villain. I was very happy we saw the villain, because it's been so much speculation of who was going to be the main villain.
Right.
So if you haven't seen The Crown season 4, Emma Corrin, great actress. She was great as the young Diane. Very curious how she's going to play this character. If everyone doesn't know, in the X-Men 90 show, the Genosha attack was her, the Casanova, not Mr. Sinister. So
it's pretty obvious in the trailer that she's taken over the Void completely, because she has control of Alioth, right? Like she's got psychic like control of Alioth.
That's true. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
She's Alioth as a weapon. Alioth is remember that's what Kang used to win the wars.
Yeah.
Well, Andres, one quick point of clarity for you. In X-Men 97, it is not Cassandra Nova. In the comics, based off of it is. Yeah. Just sorry to clarify that. Yeah.
No. I just want to say, Cassandra Nova was one that's responsible for the Genosha attack in the storyline E for Extinction, folks. That's what I was just saying. Instead of Mr. Sinister, who's the one that's responsible for the 90s. So my bad. I was explaining that this is the person that was behind that, like the original attack in the Grant Morrison's run. So I'm excited, overall of the TVA and all the X-Men stuff. I grew up, from the Fox movies, and see how they handle that. I mean, I just want to see them re-interacting our MCU characters. That's the thing. I'm like, oh my god, please have a post-credit scene for these two characters, because they're jumping in that portal. For whoever opened that for them.
How mean would it be if that's the conclusion to the movie? It's just them jumping through the portal and it's a hard crash to credits.
Yes. And Deadpool, meta comments it's like, oh, you have to wait next year or the next Avengers movie. And it's like,
supposedly there's some crazy post-credit scene that's gonna go on, that's gonna happen during the film or whatever too. And of course there is. I'm sure that there is gonna be a crazy one.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the Deadpool fixing history credit scene is one of the best things ever. Him shooting his own character and stuff. You can't ask for a better post credit than that, but they're obviously going to try. So
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? Let's wrap it up right there. I'll plug you guys out and then we can get the hell out of here. It was a good show. Great job, guys. Shout out to everybody in the audience. And we'll start off with JC, since it's your first time on the show, brother. I'll go to you first. Now, please tell us, sir, about Cyclops Is Waiting for Me an X-Men the Animated Series weekly recap podcast?
So we are a recap podcast. We originally started over 2 years ago. We went week to week watching every single episode of X-Men the Animated Series in preparation for X-Men 97. When the delays happened, we started watching X-Men Evolution, but now we are watching week to week and doing every single episode. The episode airs on, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and we have our recap with our thoughts on every Monday. We've had the original showrunners of X-Men 92 on the show. We just recently had the voice of Bishop on the show. And we really do focus on the cartoon universe of the X-Men. So
we were reviewing the Marvel, the original 90s Marvel, X-Men animated series on Monday nights before we started X-Men, before we started doing Rick and Michonne, The Ones Who Live and all that and whatnot. And we're eventually going to go back to it. We'd love to go over on your show and cover some X-Men animated.
Yeah.
Artie Pop, what's your guy, sir?
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I just want to say I'm a huge X-Men Revolution fan. I think it's one of the best representation for X-Men. Like, I think that's because I really appreciate what they do with Cyclops there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just want to say that because I really love that show. I grew up watching Revolution. So hello guys, Andreas Pococh guy. Here's my channel. I'm up to 937. I just post my comic book read of X-Men Days of Future Past Doomsday. It's a good run from Mark Guggenheim. Because I'm going to lead up into the 10th anniversary for X-Men Days of Future Past this month in May, when they premiere in May 23rd, back in 2014. So look out for that when me and Jeff are going to do a live stream review for that. Next Sunday, me and Jeff are going to come back and do finish up the Chucky season 3 part 2 review for episode 7-8. So that's going to be really fun. Jeff, we're going to get a lot of blood in the guts, which is great. And then our next, I know what's going to be our second live stream after Chucky is going to be X-Men Days of Future Past, because we have to do it. I'm a huge X-Men fan. I love Days of Future Past, so we're going to do that first. So that's what I'm going to plan for me. I can't believe it's going to be April's going to be done tomorrow, so it's crazy. So thank you everyone supporting me. Yeah, I know it's crazy. Thank you everyone. Thank you JC for coming to the show. It's a pleasure. Please help me hit the mark, and plus help Cyber hit the 2 mark. So thank you so much.
There you go. Anyways, all right, folks. Well, guess what, guys? The show is over. JC, great job, brother. Appreciate you having on, man.
Thank you guys
so much.
Yep.
Hopefully you'll come back again. We really enjoyed having you on. It's always like 3's always better than 2, baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
What do you think, Andres? You agree?
I agree to have another person we can talk to besides you and me, because we don't.
Oh, you trying to say something about me? Oh,
no,
okay.
No, Jeff, I love you, brother.
I see how it is. Okay, folks.
Andres, it was ending on such a high note, and then you started.
I know, right?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Now you broke my heart. I'm crying inside now.
Well, you broke my heart. You're wearing the Mr. Sinister shirt. Come on, dude. What's my shirt?
What am I supposed to do? Put it in the box and mail it to you tomorrow? What do you want me to do, baby?
Mail it to Andreas Diaz.
It's too small for you anyway. All right, folks. We love all of you out there. God bless you. We'll see you on Wednesday for Shogun Chapter 10, baby. Woohoo! Peace.